Titanbeard by StorytellerBox. Now, I want you to picture the most typical and disgusting American stereotype possible. Imagine a person that's obese due to eating at McDonald's too often. Not only that, said person has a gun collection and extremely rude. That was who Titanbeard was. I'll call Titanbeard T. I met T during an internship. All of the interns had to make introductions, and that's when I saw T. He was huge from what I saw, at least 6 feet with floppy arms, legs, and a massive belly. Not to mention his scraggly beard, which he was way too proud of. To top it all off, he had shoulder-length hair which looked like it was just dipped in grease. But the real problems happened during lunch break. I was talking with the other interns when T interrupted our conversation. He said, "I didn't know you could speak English," while looking at me straight in the eye. By the way, for context, I am Asian. At first, I thought nothing of it. But then he immediately continued, "You should stop stealing American jobs and go back to China." Now, while I am ethnically Chinese, I wasn't born in China. I can barely speak Chinese. Luckily, one of my coworkers responded and said, "T, that's just rude, you shouldn't say that." T's response was comical at best and disgusting at worst. He said you plebeians could never understand my train of thought. It wasn't racist, I was just stating facts. Do note that up to this point nobody mentioned racism except T himself. After this I just asked everyone except T to move elsewhere, and so we left T behind. While moving, I heard T scream, "Typical, you people don't want to hear opposing opinions." I had thought that this would be the worst thing about T, but no, he never ceases to disappoint. During the internship, T would constantly brag about his gun collection and how it helped him in getting multiple girlfriends. He also kept bragging about his sex life, which I believe is non-existent. Things he would talk about include how descriptions of sex which were so comical you would only believe it if it was in a porno. Here's a taste of what he said. "So, I fucked this one chick so hard, slapped her in the ass repeatedly as well while she was calling me master the whole time." Of course, no one believed him because, well, you would need to have zero dignity to ever call T a master. Coming from T, his stories sounded more like cries of desperation than bragging. And it gets worse. Eventually, my manager informed us that the company was hosting a welcome dinner for the interns. The restaurant that was chosen had a hefty discount for groups of 4. In total, we were 7 people, so my manager asks if anyone wanted to bring an extra person. Nobody else offered, so I asked if I could take my girlfriend, and my manager said yes. Shortly after, when everyone was leaving, T came up to me for no reason. He said, "There's no way you have a girlfriend. Women would never date Asian men due to their tiny genitals." I was silent, and left as if T had never said a word. I regretted not punching T in the face, but what's done is done. Eventually dinner came up. When me and my GF arrived, everyone was nice and polite. Most just asked about our relationship and our size. For context, I'm a short and skinny Asian dude with a girlfriend who is just as skinny but even shorter. Picture 2 twigs side by side, and that's how I assume most people view me and my GF. It was all good until T showed up. When he saw my GF, he went straight to her, held her right hand and said, "I find Asian women to be very attractive. Why don't you come with me instead of him? I'm sure he doesn't satisfy your needs." My GF was understandably confused and scared, so she shook T off and have me the "please help me" look. I had enough and said, "T, stop hitting on my GF in front of my face." And before T could reply, my manager said, "T, our company promotes respect as one of its core values and all employees must follow said values." Fortunately, that was enough to stop T. For those of you who are disgusted by T, relax. Everyone except T was given a certificate and a letter of recommendation to another company.
Neckbeard Classmate by AdonisCox. To start off, it's been so long since I last posted and it feels kinda nice to be back into it. This may not be the sub to post this, but the dude overall has the neckbeard aesthetic. A bit of background for the story: I'm currently in my 3rd year at university and a humanities major. One of the main requirements of this major is to take classes pertaining to different cultures for the hope of cross-analyzing them by your senior year. I had already taken courses on Japanese comparative literature and folk tales from Korea, so my advisor recommended I take a course on Chinese art to complete the Asian portion of my requirements. I figured why not and signed up for it. The professor that teaches the class is renowned to be a brilliant professor. You basically have to either be some kind of Chinese major/minor or get a recommendation for the class to for sure get in. Thankfully, my advisor and the professor are friends, so getting me in was no problem. I go in on the first day and notice a classmate I had the previous semester in a literature class. We take up THR buddy system and chat until the professor arrives. We hear this guy before he even walks in the room. Just a symphony of heavy breathing a few times through the mouth followed by deep inhales through the nose. The noises made sense after he entered the door. A large man wearing a bleached shirt, it actually fit him to his correct size, surprisingly long, abnormally greasy hair you could probably fry bacon on, tied in what resembled a samurai ponytail, and a red face riddled with a sad attempt of a beard. My friend and I just kind of glance at each other and shrug it off, already used to the strange people you encounter at a school as liberal as ours. Then class began and holy shit. The professor literally just gave a summary of the history of Chinese art and how it progressed over the years and how cultural movements have changed the way art was made or viewed. This guy raises his hand after every 4 sentences and says things along the line of, "Oh yay, that's very similar to the Japanese, except the Japanese had more honor and the Chinese didn't really kick off their peak until after Japan invaded them." My classmate is trying hard not to laugh while I'm boiling in my seat. A pet peeve I developed as a college student was students that tried too hard to relate to the class with outside topics that didn't contribute to the lesson. This guy was hitting the button straight on. The professor, bless her heart, tries to be polite and steer the conversation. There's only been 3 classes since the first day of school and already this guy has shared his opinion on the Japanese being superior. That females should have just stayed housewives and then they wouldn't have been shot during the Tiananmen Square, basically a massacre of student protesters in 1989. It's now illegal to even mention it there in China, to which a few students started to yell at him, and he likes to think he's the most well-read in class. I might post more about this as more events come up, that is unless he keels over because he decides to take the stairs instead of the elevator.
Actual Neckbeard by deleted. I was dating a guy who had a brother. The brother had a creepy friend who had tried to hit on me and tell me that I had bedroom eyes and that I was pretty. I always tried to be polite but firm, saying I was not interested, I was dating someone else. He didn't respect this and made creepy comments every time he saw me. This guy had a neckbeard, was smelly and just generally unkempt. Eventually this guy finds me on social media and sends me creepy messages. I block him, and show the guy I was dating so his brother could maybe talk to him and tell him to stop. One day we are all hanging out at a big party and the creep is there, so I just try to not be around him. At some point this guy comes up to me and tried talking to me. He asks if I want to be with him, and reminds me that has been nice to me. I tell him no, that I'm happy with my guy. He then has the gall to say, well, you have sex with guy I'm dating, so why won't you have sex with me? I was just so shocked.
Baby's first neckbeard, or How I Got Scared Away from Tabletop Gaming for Life. By NaNowhyMo. This happened years ago, when I was 11. My mother was trying to get my delinquent ass into some nice, quiet, nerdy hobbies. So, she ditched me at her friend's tabletop gaming shop/club thing so I'd learn something I could do inside and away from the dangerous teen boy population. As an 11-year-old kid with no clue how anything worked, I got to sit at the noob table and be very slowly talked through the basics of Warhammer by some rando experienced players. All was well, until the neckbeard arrived. He introduced himself as a scholar. He was starting an English degree in September, making him 18 at least. He was that kind of spilling dough fat that gives the impression of melting. I remember being able to smell him. Full-on neckbeard. I'm just trying to hold my breath until he starts talking to me. I shit you not, this grown-ass man offers me, from his pocket, a lolly for the lolly? Nasty fuzzy lollipop. I don't know what that means. I was not the kind of kid that watched anime. I was the kind of kid that ran around outside and occasionally tipped bins over for the lulz. It means you're a cute little lady. I had never been called a lady in my life, because I was barely 5, barely in bras, and wore my hair in 2 plaits or bunches most days. Thank you? I, being an idiot child, wasn't thinking stranger danger. Yet, because the idea of someone so old and sweat-stained would be after me didn't occur to me at all. Seeing that openly fetishizing a child wasn't working, Neckbeard went for a different approach. Do you need help? Girls usually aren't too good at this game. His greasy skin glistened in the electrical lighting as he heaved himself to his feet and leaned over me to position the figures. In front of me. There was contact. There were rolls. A hand on my waist. I was not having a good time. It took me way too long to realize how creepy he was being, because I had no idea how people acted in these situations. Nerds were like an alien species to me. Maybe this was just how nerd life worked, and I should be taking pointers. I was a gullible little fuck. I realized because he asked for my number. I clarified that I was, in fact, a minor. He clarified that he would, in fact, make dating him worth it. And that he'd convince me no matter what. He said he respected high school girls more than most. Because he was an intellectual. I wasn't in high school yet. When I refused, he grabbed for me. My wrist, probably, but I leaned back as far as I could to get away. He asked if I'd prefer his house, no strings attached. I overbalanced and fell off my stool, yelled something along the lines of "get the fuck away from me" and exited pursued by an employee. I ran about halfway down the road, and called my mum in tears. I never went back to that shop. Pretty sure we got the guy banned, though. I haven't glanced at a tabletop game since.
Sarah the Legbeard learns about plagiarism by lilyoflegbeards. I recently found this Reddit, and browsing the threads I realized there were stories of the female neckbeard equivalent. Hell, even a name for them. I had no idea. Once I read a few stories, I realized I have one of my own. Really, a good few. There was a girl I once knew, from middle school to mid-high school, that had all of the most painful Legbeard qualities squished into one psychotic little girl. This is her story. NBSP. Our characters. NBSP. Lily, Legbeard bait, aka me, quite possibly the most oblivious 12-year-old in the world. Kind of a doormat, painfully nice and trusting to people. NGL. Was having my intense weeb phase at the time, but mostly kept it to myself and friends, thank God. I was pretty enough for a middle schooler, long black hair, short and petite, though I was stuck with braces at the time. I was most well known as the best artist at my school. NBSP. Sarah, our Legbeard. She was about an average height with a stocky build, thin blonde hair and a painful unibrow. She constantly smelled of cat piss due to owning 12 cats. She was loud, bossy and, somehow, my friend. Also deep in her weeb phase at the time, proudly wearing her Naruto headbands, toting around her clamp mangas and wore gothic Lolita fashion. Trust me, it was not. Would draw manga comics, more on that in a bit. NBSP. This is probably the most normal, vanilla story of Sarah I have, so I thought it'd be a good start. Also, it's something that happened within a month of meeting her, so, hey! NBSP. When I first met Sarah, it was through my small circle of friends. We weren't exactly popular, being the anime-watching, WoW-playing crowd, but no one really bothered us. Sarah had transferred a month after school has started, and, in openly wearing a Naruto headband and carrying around a stack of manga, it was only a matter of time before she was pointed in our direction. NBSP. We took her in as one of our own, and things were pretty alright. She was in most of my classes, it just so happened as well, so we chat. She was very big sisterly to a lot of us, and very affectionate. Probably too affectionate, really, constantly hugging or grabbing or touching. She even kissed me on the forehead the third day I knew her. NBSP. However, she wasn't that interested in me until she realized my artistic prowess, which was displayed in class when we were split into groups. It just so happened she was in mine, along with 3 other people. Considering the project was a poster board, the 3 other kids automatically elected me to do all the art, as per usual. I was that kid in the class, only spoken to when graphics were needed. Sigh, I shrugged sure as always, before Sarah excitedly ripped out a binder. NBSP. I can draw too, she said. I was actually pretty wowed at the time, her art looked just like a real manga. However, The other kids were obstinate about me doing it, which obviously did not bode well with Sarah. As we started our work, Sarah began critiquing whatever I drew out of nowhere. At first, I just nodded along thoughtfully, actually planning on taking her advice. But then she began to rock our shared table, kick my chair leg, etc., all while huffing over my shoulder. I didn't say anything for whatever reason, and managed to finish something decent, but even after the bell rang, she wasn't done. NBSP. My next class and hers were in the same direction, so we walked together. The entire walk she talked about how she was going to move to Japan and become a mangaka, and how the other kids in our group were stupid for not letting her do the art. Her beef with my art, apparently, was my lack of fashion. Which, TBH, she wasn't wrong. My art was pretty plain at the time. However, she went on to say that my art was alright, and that we should be rivals. NBSP. I'm not a competitive person, so I kind of blanched at the thought, but she insisted, referring to various anime rival friends and claiming we could challenge each other, etc. etc. I kind of shrugged, nodded to get her off my case, and was treated to an awkward minute of her gripping my hands in hers as she stared into my eyes intently. I was very lost, so I just kind of stared back at her, wondering when this would end. Then, without a word, she took off her Naruto headband, tied it around her forehead and nodded at me solemnly, before walking into her class. NBSP. It just so happened later that week that our school announced an art contest to draw the school mascot, which would then be painted in our new gym. I was pretty excited, mainly because our mascot was a big cat, and I was pretty obsessed with cats at the time. Of course, the second the announcement ended over the loudspeaker, Sarah was upon me, eyes shining. NBSP. This would be it, our first challenge, she said. I was actually kind of sweating it. Her art was really good from the looks of it. The next few weeks she poked and prodded me, literally, about the contest, showing me flashes of design. I didn't work on it at school, only at home, where I could get some peace, and that only made her taunting worse, as I had nothing to show. I just nod and shrug, but it was getting pretty ridiculous. NBSP. Eventually, the day came to turn our pictures in, and I brought my design, finally. She gave it a once-over, before sneering, like a true anime rival, and striking a sort of cocky pose. She was all about that cool character arrogance. Aesthetic, or whatever, and she would mimic dramatic anime-esque motions and expressions, to the best of her ability, often. She'd repeatedly called me a twerp or a loser, and flicked me on the forehead or on my nose with her fingers, but would quickly JK and give me a little wink. After all, she was just acting the part. NBSP. Well, lo and behold, she won the contest. I was upset, NGL, but being referred to as the best artist in the school and then getting your art shot down doesn't do much to soften artistic failure. Nor did Sarah's gloating. She would put on her cool voice to spit some mean one-liner at me, before the eventual JK when I wouldn't respond. NBSP. I was pretty depressed about it, but that weekend my cousin came over to babysit me while my parents were away, and I was looking forward to it. My cousin is the person who really got me into anime in the first place, and so she brought over some stuff to watch. She also brought with her some old manga of hers, which she gave to me to try and cheer me up. It was almost her complete collection of Cardcaptor Sakura, and excited for something I had heard about, from Sarah, of all people, but not read, I set to work on the pile. NBSP. What happened next must have been some kind of fate, because as I read one issue, I came across a character design that stood out to me. The character in question was the true form of Sakura's weird little cat thing, Karo. It looked eerily familiar in pose and build to Sarah's drawing of our big cat mascot. The realization hit me that I had never actually seen her drawing, that she would just show up to school with new art. And what she drew looked exactly like manga. Too exact. Flipping through the book I found a few other things I knew I had seen her draw. NBSP. I was furious at first, realizing her traced artwork had beaten something I had worked on, before going to my cousin for help. She told me to go directly to the office on Monday and report it to the principal, and that's exactly what I did. NBSP. After some doubts. What if I was wrong? I was so scared of seeming petty. After a bit of mental back and forth, staring at the book, I decided fuck it, I'm going in. I didn't get to talk to the principal, but instead the vice. She was skeptical at first, and I was really sweating, but when she took the picture Sarah had turned in and put it side by side, it was hard to deny any difference between the two. I begged her not to tell Sarah it was me who told her about it, and she actually kept that promise. NBSP. Sarah's entry was revoked and a new winner was chosen. It wasn't me still, but a girl I knew whose entry was actually a lot better than mine in hindsight for a painting. NBSP. Sarah was furious, and had to deal with several talks about plagiarism for the rest of the year. She never found out I was the snitch, she assumed the girl who won was. NBSP. If anything, from that day forth Sarah started producing her own, original art. It wasn't very good, but at least it was hers. NBSP. However, that was only the beginning of trouble with Sarah. In the next few years I would become her best, and only, friend, and later, crush. I would be subjected to claims of witchcraft, vampirism, other kin, and our friendship would be tested through blood pacts, attempted human sacrifice. Twice in weird friend bondage. NBSP. The emo phase for a weeaboo is a harsh one. NBSP. I do intend on elaborating some of these, I honestly just don't know where to start. It was a wild ride being Sarah's best friend, and thinking back to it I have no idea why the hell I stuck around. I wasn't the brightest star in the sky back then, I think. NBSP. I'm not the best storyteller, so I'm sorry about the plainness. I'll try to work on that. Let me know what seems the most interesting and I'll do my best to write up what I remember. And thank you for reading.
A neckbeard tries to woo a lady in all the wing ways Part 6, The Red Pill Doesn't Work Dickheap, or the most lopsided fight I've ever seen. By I_AMA_spaz. So in the last episode, I described the most awkward date I've ever been on. This time Krabs tries a different approach, namely, the red pill. The cast. Me, we'll call me Spaz. I was 15 at the time, very small, 5 feet 1 inch 100 pounds, and as my username suggests, kind of a spaz. I'm really into things like Fallout, Battlefield, and Fire Emblem. I have the symbol for anime magic tattooed on my chest. Unfortunately I guess this made me neckbeard bait. Erika, my best friend, into all of the same things as me, except she's a fucking Amazon woman. 6 tall and 160 pounds, she's not really a looker, but she's built like a brick shithouse and absolutely crushes at basketball. She's also the sweetest person in the world, for the most part. Ephraim, Erika's twin brother, same height as her, but he's got a lot more muscle. I think he was about 200 pounds. He's a really chill guy, fun to be around. At this point he's been my boyfriend for 4 months. Krabs, the neckbeard, named Krabs because he has the same body type as Mr. Krabs. He also has a similar skin tone. He's 5 feet 7 inches and 250 pounds. He's also a fucking max level creep. He's always sweating, presumably from the zero physical activity that he does. He is obsessed with MLP, anime, and PC gaming. So after our little date didn't end with me throwing myself at Krabs and demanding he ravage me, he decided that he just wasn't being mean enough to me. He started talking non-stop about how he had read this and that on r/third pill. Like usual I didn't listen to him, but then he started using the things he had read about on me. I was sitting in the computer class I mentioned in the first installment. Krabs was next to me, talking at me like usual. I was only half listening to him, but suddenly he had my full attention because he said, "You know, women like you should really learn to listen to men. Maybe you'd learn a thing or two." What the fuck? Women like me? Well, I guess women isn't the right word. Sluts like you. You fucking what, mate? Excuse me? What did you just call me? I'm just being honest, you're a skank. I mean, yeah, a bit, but only with Ephraim. Sluts, ham planets, feminazis, you're all the same. You're all below men. He said that shit, verbatim. I was just sitting there shocked as he continued. Speaking of ham planets, you could stand to lose some weight yourself. This cut deep. When I was 14 I had major body image issues. I wouldn't eat because though I was fat. I had only very recently started to eat normally, now this motherfucker brings all of that back. I felt tears building up, but then the strong part of my brain was like, fuck this guy, don't let him see you cry, you're past that shit. It took all of my willpower, But I kept the tears back. I sat in silence for a few minutes until Krabs said oh nothing to say fatty. Harda har har har. Fuck it, let out sweetie. I cried quietly to myself while Krabs put a big smug grin on his face like this was a major victory. One of Ephraim's friends saw me crying and he must have texted Ephraim because I got a message from him. What's wrong? I explained what Krabs had said, and he responded quickly. Fuck that guy, you're beautiful. Tell him that I'm sick of him treating you like this. Tell him to meet me at the dumpster after school so we can talk. I collected myself as well as I could and relayed this message to Krabs, who thought about the situation, then said fine, tell him I'll see him there. Oh, this is going to be glorious. So the end of school comes around and I meet up with Ephraim. He's clearly worked up, and we go out to the dumpsters and wait. Krabs saunters up and Ephraim looks at him in disgust. You made Spaz cry today? There was a lot of venom in those words, but Krabs seemed oblivious. Yeah, she needs to know her place. Ephraim is literally shaking with rage. Alright, here's the deal, you ass clown, you and me are going to fight. If I win, you leave Spaz the fuck alone. If you win, you leave Spaz the fuck alone. Got it? Krabs opened his mouth to say something, but before he could say anything Ephraim hit him, not very hard, just a quick jab to the face, but Krabs launched into a rage and chased after Ephraim. What followed is the funniest thing I've seen in my life to date. Ephraim just kept moving out of Krabs's reach. It was like that scene from In Bruges, when Colin Farrell's character just dances around the fat guy. So this goes on for about a minute and a half, at which point Krabs is huffing like an 8th grader trying to get high. Krabs stops giving chase and leans over with his hands on his knees, at which point Ephraim delivers the hardest uppercut right into Krabs's face. Krabs dropped then scrambled to his feet. He was crying and his lip was bleeding bad. Fuck you, Ephraim, you're just a big dumb jock shithead. Ephraim just smiled and made a fake lunge at Krabs, who flinched like a motherfucker. Krabs threw one last glare in our direction before waddling away. I hugged Ephraim and thanked him, but deep down I knew this wouldn't solve the problem. And it didn't. Stay tuned, because next time I'll tell you about the prom incident. Edit, just found the typo in the title. Oops, damn autocorrect. Edit 2, fixed some more typos. Jesus Christ, I'm a mess.
Neckbeard jokes about kicking my ass then tries to kiss me by Mr. Nailbrain 75. The other night I was feeling bored so I decided to go out to a local club that wasn't far from my student flat. After having a couple of light drinks, I walked around between the rooms to see which one I wanted to dance in. This club has 3 rooms with each playing a different genre of music, which is great when a song comes on you don't like. Anyway, as I was milling about, I noticed some girls I had been friends with since the first year of university where we had all shared a flat with a couple of other guys. I had also been to one of the girls' birthday a couple of weeks prior. So naturally I went over to say hi. They seemed really happy to see me, asked me how I was and even offered a shot of vodka, well I wasn't about to say no to a free drink lol, and asked if I wanted to join them. Now my friends weren't there alone, being with several guys and another girl. From what I gathered, they and some classmates had planned a little event together but no one seemed to mind if I joined. So we danced for a while together, chatted and I even bought my friends some drinks to say thanks for the vodka and for having me, VK Blue if anyone is wondering. Anyway, as we're dancing, I notice one of the guys keeps glancing at me a bit skeptically. As I've never met him before this, I figure he's wondering why I'm here since I hadn't initially been part of their group. Fair enough, right? So I casually explain how I knew the girls. He seems to relax then says, "Oh, that's alright then, I thought I might have to step in on you. I'm here to stop any creeps." He tries to act super tough while saying this despite being the human equivalent of a chihuahua. Seriously, I'm a guy with arms built like pencils, never done any hard drugs and who would rather be playing Warhammer than going to the gym if I have the choice, and I wasn't scared of him in the slightest. God knows that he would be as useful as a gelatin pickaxe if someone in the least bit intimidating actually showed an interest in harming him or one of my friends. I initially chalked this up to him maybe having a bit to drink and or wanting to sound impressive, so I didn't mind. Until about 20 minutes later. A couple members of the group had decided to call it quits for the night, including the human chihuahua. He without any explanation tries to kiss me. I hold up my hand to ward him off, looking confused and shaking my head. To any normal person, this is a clear cue that I do not want them any closer. Aw, come on, just let me kiss you. Disgusted, I once again tell him no, although a little more firmly. Luckily this time he takes the hint, although I am fairly certain had he continued, security would have stepped in as there was a bouncer watching this less than 10 feet away. I have no idea why he thought it was acceptable to try to kiss me and then to try again when I told him no. If I had to guess, I imagine he thought something along the lines of, well, this guy lived with these girls for a year and still isn't trying to sleep or even flirt with them. He must be gay. So obviously he won't mind me trying to slap my cock holster on his face. Or something like that. I'm not gay, and even if I was, I wouldn't want some random guy to try and kiss me, especially if he didn't get the clear hint that means go away. You'd think that would be the only dick I'd run into that night, but no. Not even a random guy, but another from the group who I barely knew. At this point I feel like I should clarify that not every guy in that group was like this. All the others were genuinely nice and I talked with a couple of them for a while. It was just these two. So this second guy, as the group was dancing, for some reason which still escapes me, decided to flip me off and for the rest of the evening keep shooting me dirty looks. I honestly can't remember having done anything to offend him. If it was because he liked one of the girls, it still wouldn't make sense as I wasn't flirting with them or doing anything of the sort, just being friendly, so I have no idea how or why he saw me as competition. Ironically, if this latter reason was the case, it backfired. After that, I noticed most of my friends giving him a bit more of a wide berth. When we were all walking, the girls, who all shared a student house together, asked if I wanted to crash in their spare room. The guy isn't even offered. He gives me one last dirty look, then heads off home alone at 3 a.m. Meanwhile I get to a spare bed and free pizza for the night. It was awesome. I understand this may be tame compared to many of the others on here, but I figured I'd post it while it was fresh in my head. DL, Doctor, head out to a club and meet up with some friends and their associates. One of them claims he was going to fight me if I was there to be a creep, then creepily tries to kiss a straight guy, me, without consent, and even tries again after being told not to. Another flips me off and acts rude to try and seem cool in front of the girls, only for it to backfire.
My Dad vs. the Legendary Elfbeard by crispdinky. Please don't grill me too harshly if I don't know all the proper Warhammer terms. Way back when I was knee-high to a hubcap, my dad used to have more free time for his hobbies. He used to be a gym rat, play his bass guitar, but loved Warhammer and Warhammer 40k. He still does. He would go to the local GW shop to either talk about fluff, get new paints, discuss paint jobs and customs models, and of course play the game. He never had much time to go to many tournaments being a working and family man, but he played when he could. Now enter the legendary Elfbeard. He was a pasty-skinned dude, with long unkempt brunette hair and a fledgling neckbeard. He was not the sweaty obese neckbeard, he was more of the lanky pencil neck kind. He got the name Elfbeard, because he had an unnatural enthrallment with, you guessed it, elves. Even down to wearing some makeup, prosthetic ears, and trying to speak Elvish, I think. Anyways, my dad was playing Warhammer with some other dudes when Elfbeard decided to grace the commoners. He scoffed at my dad's army because he played my dad pygmies. They decided to have a game. Elfbeard had a bad time because they were fighting in a jungle environment with tons of terrain to hide in. Elfbeard, visibly angry that he, a pristine higher being, was losing to a group of filthy pygmies. My dad was using hit and run tactics because of the terrain. Elfbeard's trump card was a Minotaur champion. Hey, he's gonna fucking kill those damn pygmies. Elfbeard smugly said. My dad simply replied, not while my pygmies have him within range of their blow darts. My dad rolled. 10 pygmies hit the Minotaur. No saving throws, no rolls for wounds, he was dead. Elfbeard was beside himself. What the fuck? That's fucking cheating. Those fucking black assholes shouldn't have that much damage. The game moderator stepped in. Dude, you got hit in direct line of sight by 10 units. Your model is super dead. Elfbeard, being a spindly little guy, actually told my dad to step outside so he could beat his cheating ass. My dad stands at about 6'3" and at the time weighed about 260-ish pounds and was pretty buff. Instead of flattening this delusional nerd, my dad told him to pick his minotaur up and said, "Look, he is magically alive. Now shut up and play." After some very quiet and tense turns, Elfbeard lost, but kept his saltiness mostly to himself. He walked up to my dad afterwards and said, "It's not fair. You use really good military strategy, you have a good-looking painted army, a rock-hard body, and a wife. It's just not fair that guys like you have to start encroaching on geek hobbies now." My dad didn't say anything, except rolled his eyes in pity. The GM did the same. Elfbeard walked out the store, and my dad swears this is true, waved his hands and started chanting nonsense. Most likely some elven curse or whatever. This was an old story of some of the craziest things that happened to my dad and Neckbeards. I'll try to bother him to see if he remembers any other weird stuff.
Neckbeard learns the financial consequences of his actions by the _lettuce_avenger. Hello there, I've previously shared with you quotes from a Victorian neckbeard, but I also have a tale to tell about a modern-day neckbeard I encountered in the wild. It is very long and goes off on tangents, and I am sorry. The characters. Lettuce Avenger, your lovely protagonist, English literature student who acknowledges her natural beauty but chooses to elevate herself to goddess status using the power of makeup, relevant. Sir Helmer, neckbeard in question, so named after Torvald Helmer from A Doll's House after I overheard him talking about how Helmer was such a nice guy and how Nora was a dumb bitch for leaving him. Part of the other English class, and not in any of my other classes, so I rarely encounter him unless he actively seeks me out. Other characters will be introduced accordingly. The first time I ever encountered Sir Helmer, he was in a heated debate with a teacher concerning headwear that did not adhere to the strict uniform code. I know what you're thinking, but your assumptions are miscalculated. It was not a fedora, or a trilby, it was a top hat. It wasn't one of those very long ones, but it was a top hat all the same. As I walked past, in the midst of the debate, he pointed his hairy finger at me and yelled, "If I'm not allowed to wear a hat, how come she is?" It was common knowledge that for some reason unknown to me that I am slightly exempt from school uniform regulations, and I often wear a mustard yellow bowler hat to school. I am wearing it right now. It's like my thing. There is even a yellow hat fan club which consists of 2 lower school girls following me on occasion. Sometimes I like to mix it up with a burgundy beret or a royal blue hat. Back to the story. The teacher retorted that I was still complying to the office wear only guidelines and that they would keep his hat safe for him to take home at the end of the day, and if he wore it again it would be confiscated. At this point I was attempting to exit the scene by speeding up my ascent up the staircase where this argument was taking place, but after the hat had been handed over he caught up with me. "So, I see I've found someone who shares my love of hats," he panted after hastily clambering up the stairs 3 at a time. "Haha, yeah, well I kind of wear this hat a lot. It's kind of my thing." "Cool. Can I try it on?" Usually I am okay with people trying on my hat, but his hair is pretty greasy and I don't want grease stains on my favorite hat. Sorry, I'll get hat hair." "Oh, that's cool, I have hat hair too," he said, pointing to his hair. "That is not hat hair. That is chip fat fryer hair." After that I saw him occasionally round school and would talk to me about hats briefly. Nothing particularly neckbeardy. Until one day, we happened to be talking to each other when a girl who will be known as Barbie entered the scene to ask me about the biology homework. Barbie is so named because she is very, very pretty, and wears a fair amount of quite loud makeup, including red lipstick. After she left, Sir Helmer leaned closer to me and whispered, "God, girls who wear makeup are such whores." Excuse me? That's quite a thing to say about someone who is clearly my friend. Did you see what she plastered on her face? It looks so ugly. Any girl who wears that much makeup is automatically a slut. No excuses. Oh, okay then, I thought being a slut had something to do with having sex with lots of people, but I guess I was wrong. "Oh, alright then. I guess I'm a whore then," I replied. "Oh. But, you're not wearing any makeup, are you? I'm just saying, you look really pretty all natural like that, so you should probably just chuck away any makeup you have." "Really pretty all natural like that? Natural like that? Natural?" I had to stare at him for a while. "Sir Helmer, you do realize I'm wearing a lot of makeup, right?" "Nonsense. You just have low self-esteem, that's all. All girls have that." Okay, I'm going to take a time out from this story just to tell you guys exactly how much makeup I was wearing that day, and how absurd it was for him not to notice. I had 3 layers of concealer on my spots and under my eyes, foundation, BB cream, powder, a considerable amount of blusher, shiny lip gloss, 5 different shades of eyeshadow, white eyeliner for my waterline, black winged eyeliner and a heck of a lot of mascara. And he thinks that that is not wearing makeup. But this is not where the story gets to the actual Neckbeard climatic scene. Oh no. Let me tell you about the English trip. Both English classes together were going to a 3-day workshop/masterclass/seminar thingy about Victorian literature. It was a school event at a university, so we were told that during the day we would have to wear what we wear to school normally, blazer, office wear, etc., and for the girls who wore it, makeup. The dorms were very large and there weren't too many of us, so the girls all shared one room and the boys all in another. On the first morning after we had arrived, all the girls were bustling about getting ready, when Sir Helmer suddenly came in. I think the reason he didn't knock was so that maybe he could take a sneak peek at some sexy half-dressed girls, but he was disappointed. Guys? Ms. said that you have to be downstairs in 10 minutes, so hurry up." "Okay, thanks Sir Helmer." Usually that would be a cue to leave for ordinary folk, but not Sir Helmer. He saw me and came up to me. "Morning lettuce. Wow, you look pretty tired. Did you even sleep last night?" "No, Sir Helmer, I'm just not wearing any makeup. I have serious dark circles," I replied, as I was just about to begin the process of applying my entire face. Sir Helmer noticed the impressive array of bottles and brushes and powders before me, looked at my makeup-less face and said very loudly and dramatically, "Lettuce Avenger. You wear makeup. I'd keep it down, it's morning. You've been lying to me this entire time." "Yeah, okay, I did tell you I wear makeup. Honestly, you shouldn't wear so much. You don't want to be a whore, do you?" The stupidity in his sentence was too much for me to bear. "Listen, Sir Helmer, I don't care about your stupid notions of makeup. I wear a lot, but I take care of my skin, and I look good doing it. So bye." Sir Helmer was pained, Milady was sullying her fragile flesh. He awkwardly stormed out. Afterwards, we all trailed down to breakfast, where Sir Helmer was nowhere to be seen, but I didn't really give crap because he had proved his suspicions to me of being an asshole. He reappeared later looking suspicious. When we returned to the dorm for a good healthy bout of toothbrushing, a spectacle awaited us in the once clean and orderly dorm we had left behind just half an hour before. In the middle of the room was the contents of my entire makeup bag destroyed. Powder and blusher crushed, foundation squeezed out of its tube, all mashed up in an unholy mess. Nobody else's toiletries were touched, and nothing had been stolen. The teachers were furious, and at first thought that it was one of the girls in the dorm bullying me, but there was no chance of that. I had an inkling as to who the culprit was, but we had to rush to our first lecture on Marxist critical interpretations of Wuthering Heights, and the incident was put on hold. As we walked there, Sir Helmer managed to find me at a moment when no one was talking to me. "It's almost a blessing, isn't it, the makeup thing, isn't it?" "What?" "Well, it didn't happen to any of the other girls. It's a sign. You're different and you shouldn't change yourself to be part of the herd. You're different. I know you. My dear Sir Helmer, you have dug yourself into one hell of a hole. Also, the only thing that he knows about me is that I like cats. That is all. Well, obviously I'm not stupid." Sir Helmer, please tell me, I promise I won't be mad. Did you ruin all my makeup? I asked sweetly. He beamed. Milady has been saved. And now the gentle sir can take credit. Why, yes, I did. Sir Helmer clearly did not know me well enough. Because one thing about me is that even though I look beta and cute as shit, I won't take shit like that. I turn on my heel, locate Miss Teacher and yell. Miss. It was Sir Helmer. Who destroyed all my stuff. He just confessed I'm a fucking snitch, but I don't give a shit. Sir Helmer blanched. No, I didn't. I didn't. He panicked. One of the boys in his dorm spoke up. He's lying. He was going on and on about the fact that Lettuce wears makeup and stuff this morning before breakfast. Hey, and where were you during breakfast anyway? He finally confessed to the interrogating teachers and majority of the English strip. When back at school, I told the teachers and his parents that I didn't mind whether he got punished or not. All I wanted was for him to buy me back all everything he destroyed, and that I had all the ruined containers for him to get for me. But here's the catch, I get all my makeup from my neighbor, who reviews beauty products. So naturally she gets sent tons and tons of makeup for free, and then sells it on to friends at a cheap price. So after researching the prices, it turned out that the makeup I spend roughly $25–30 was actually worth $250. So unfortunate Sir Helmer and his, very angry, parents had to make a very expensive shopping trip to Boots. And the best part was, everything I had was almost finished and I would have gone out and bought them again. He also got a 2-hour detention on Friday. Needless to say, he never spoke to me again. TL, Dr. Necky thinks Milady looks beautiful without makeup, destroys it all, has to pay back $250 worth of makeup.
Neckbeard at the Bar by Jace London 85. I'm a man of routine. I go to the same bar with my wife every Wednesday and have been for almost 6 years. I usually have a story to tell after the night is over, but this is the first time that I've had a Neckbeard story. Every week, it's usually me, my wife, our bartender friend, and a couple of our friends who show up a bit later in the night. I usually get to the bar before my wife and settle down with my pint as I catch up with bartender friend, BF. However, last week I was running a bit late since I had to drop off my wedding band to get resized and my wife's to be cleaned/tightened. When I get to the bar, I see that my wife got there first and is waiting for me at our normal seats. She is trying to contribute to a seemingly one-sided conversation she engaged in with a rather portly, unkempt dude. He was somewhere in his mid-20s, wearing a too small t-shirt for a band I had never heard of, camo cargo shorts, and a skull cap, in fucking August, which only accentuated the thin tangle of pubes desperately clinging to his neck and chins. I'm not sure how tall he was, but judging by his sitting height, he was probably around 55, comparing that against my wife's 57, and easily over 200 pounds. I assess the situation and look at BF, who has been listening to the conversation. He looks at me and, using the facial cues that one learns by drinking with another person for 6 years, conveys to me that this guy has been going on for a while. Thinking to myself, this will be interesting, I follow my usually routine, put 1 bourbon, 1 scotch, 1 beer on the jukebox, it sets to pace for the night, and sit down in the empty seat next to my wife. She glances at me and nods to acknowledge my presence, then quickly turns on to try and make a point to the guy. Wife, yeah, but that's NB. Most people are too dim-witted to realize that today's music is inferior to the classic rock of the 60s and 70s. Who loves classic rock but isn't a dick about it. The music back then was pretty great, but that doesn't mean NB. Everything now is just a whitewashed copy of Zeppelin and Pink Floyd. Well, I think that there are a lot of bands that have been influenced by those bands and that's why they may have similar NB. No. All they are doing is making cheap imitations to try and fill their coffers. At this point, the George Thorogood that I had requested starts to come on. NB, see, this guy knows what I'm talking about. Here is a classic. None of that watered-down Black Keys bullshit. Me, ooh thanks. Dr. BF, Pinto Guinness, please. NB, uck. That stuff is so commercialized. You should try a real porter like London Porter. Now I'm thinking, okay buddy, 1, Guinness is a stout 2, they don't have London Porter at this bar. But I let it slide. Me, to each their own. At this point I notice that my wife's glass is also empty, one for her as well. NB, I guess thinking that I'm hitting on her, sure the lady would prefer something better than W to BF, finally being able to cut him off, sure? Thanks. NB, scarf, so when I offer to buy you a drink, you turn me down, but when this meathead, lol, what? Gets you one, you're fine with it? Typical. At this point, my wife and I out looking at each other like, is this real life? BF then decides to chime in. BF, I don't think Hess buying her the drink, but rather they're splitting the cost. NB is confused, so BF continues. BF, that's her husband. They're married. NB looks at us, then BF, then back to us as he slowly turns different shades of red. Finally, he downs the rest of his beer, throws some cash on the bar, and heads for the door, mumbling something about should be wearing a ring as he passes. After he leaves, we all sit back and have a good chuckle. Apparently, when my wife arrived, she had sat down, ordered an imperial stout they had special, she loves dark beers, and started to talk to BF about the music that was currently on. NB, who had been sitting at the very end of the bar, moved down to join in on the conversation, derail it with his superior opinions, and had then offered to buy her a drink, an IPA to be exact, which she hates. She politely said no thanks and tried to resume the conversation with BF before he kept interrupting her. My wife refuses to get to the bar before me now.
There are truly no beards like wedding beards. By MalfunctioningLoki. Hey all, long-time lurker / first-time poster here, became addicted to this sub a year ago. Keep up the excellent work. First off, the cast. MalfunctioningLoki / me, just gonna use Mal for short, 29F, photographer, shipped myself to the other side of the country to shoot a friend's wedding. At the time of this encounter, also _exhausted after a 10-hour plus workday and just wanted to have a beer and go to bed. Worth mentioning that I'm engaged. MH, assistant photographer, 28M, overall good guy. Married with 2 kids. Wedding beard /WB, drunken guest / weird guy, possibly mid-30s that didn't look particularly beardy on the surface, until he opened his mouth. So, as mentioned, I'm a photographer. I don't shoot weddings much at all, I hate them and they're exhausting. Don't let anyone ever bullshit you all by pretending that photography, especially weddings, is glamorous or easy. You are on your feet for _hours on end and dealing with different lighting, equipment and people situations all day long requires quite a bit of concentration, physical exertion and number crunching, and that's not even half the job done. It's mentally and physically draining, and by the end of the day, you feel like you've run a marathon. Since I shoot commercial work 99% of the time, better hours, better money, much less bullshit, I only take on weddings in special cases, and this one ticked all my boxes. Client is a close friend, travel opportunity and eye candy location. Towards the end of the evening, when all the important work had been done and the backups were running, MH and I returned to the reception hall to have a celebratory beer for a job well done. The venue was in the middle of nowhere, about an hour away from the nearest city, so all the guests and crew had accommodation at the venue, which meant that we could have some fun time once our shift ended. Once back in the reception area, MH told me that he will be right back. He wants to go get us those drinks, and I take my seat at the table, minding my own business and staring off into space as my brain and legs are just about mashed potatoes by now. Some ridiculous sound pipes up and suddenly, Weddingbeard appears before me and without warning pulls me up out of my chair into a dance that I was way too stunned, polite / professional and quite frankly _tired to remove myself from. It's worth mentioning at this point that I cannot fucking dance _. I can keep rhythm well enough, but my feet just don't want to cooperate when there's someone else's feet in close proximity to mine. This guy keeps pulling me across the dance floor while I awkwardly try to _not_smash his toes to soup, which should have been enough of a hint already, but _no_. The conversation goes something like this. WB, so, I hear you're from other side of the country. Mal, yes, I flew in a few days ago. WB, that's literally the worst place in the country to live. Mal, it's really not to me, I grew up there and I really have no reason to leave. WB, come on, what's really keeping you there? Mal, well, my fianc for one. My work, my family. WB, smirks gentlest early well, I think you're making a mistake. A talented and sophisticated milady such as yourself should consider living in a part of the country where she will be truly appreciated ! Why, though? How does that make sense? Mal, trust me, I'm very happy where I am. WB, figures, my ex-wife lives there and that's why I hate the area you live in. Mal, ooh. I'm sorry? By now, I had spotted MH in the background with a beer. Obviously, the bastard was enjoying this and after letting me squirm for a bit and me mouthing a desperate help me his way, he came up to pull me away to come check out the backups with him. To MH's credit, for the rest of the night he took up the position as my work husband and whenever WB was earned, he would either take my hand or have me hook my arm through his, which only made WB pout deeper and deeper every time he saw us. We were obviously wearing our rings, so it thankfully served to make our plan even more believable. The next day, MH and I spotted WB at breakfast again and this time, WB just winked at me and said send my love to everyone back home. WTF? And from then on, I just spent the rest of my time waiting to get on my plane home. I've dealt with some crazy shit at photoshoots, maybe if I can recall more beardy things, I will post more. Smile. Edit, formatting.
X post from r/justneckbeardthings. Neckbeard nice guy struck up a conversation with me at the worst possible time. Torture ensues. By deleted. Okay, I still can't believe this happened to me last night. I had just gotten caught in a huge, standstill traffic jam at about 2 a.m. After 45 minutes of having my car turned off on the highway, we started moving again but at a very slow, stop-and-go pace. Shortly after I see a hand in my peripherals waving at me from his driver window toward my right. I roll down my window thinking maybe the driver was trying to merge and say are you trying to merge? A neckbearded gentleman smiles at me and says no. Just striking up conversation with fellow drivers. I hate being rude so I decide to humor him, which I guess was my first mistake. Small talk about how bad the traffic is. He almost immediately tells me about the last person he had just talked to was a girl with 2 boyfriends who knew about each other and were okay with it. He tells me how wrong it is because women would never allow a man to have 2 girlfriends and be cool with it. I realize that this guy is a fedora and some fingerless gloves away from being the stereotype I want to forget actually exists, and shortly after the semi-truck behind him beeps for him to move because he has about 4 empty car lengths in front of him. He rolls his window up and moves along and I roll up mine thinking I got away just in time. Not so fast, secret identity 666. A minute or two goes by and my lane starts moving. I look to my right and see him hanging out of his window looking for me and his eyes light up as I roll into view. My hesitance to be rude makes me roll down my window yet again as he waves enthusiastically, asking me where I'm headed, where I came from, why I was headed there, why I was so far from my destination etc. This pattern of moving ahead and behind each other and him waiting patiently for me continues until I finally switch lanes and get away. I really didn't know where else to post this story except here, and I am still reeling that he thought when is the best time to strike up conversation with a stranger? 2 a.m. traffic jam.
MTG Neckbeard Meltdown, Why I Don't Play Magic with People I Don't Know Anymore. By I Banged Your Mom 69. This isn't so much my story but a story of a friend of mine. I've been playing Magic the Gathering for a few years now. It is somewhat of a reputation to bring in some pretty disgustingly neck-bearded blokes, but I find the community for the most part to be not that bad. Over the year I've convinced a good number of friends to play and a lot of them get hooked. I convinced one friend to play a few years back and he's not really the guy you would expect to play Magic. I guess you could call him a Chad. Extremely athletic and charismatic dude who's a complete closet nerd. I wouldn't even say closet nerd because the guy is pretty vocal about his nerdy hobbies. You would just never guess from seeing him that he was into that sort of stuff. For story purposes we will call him Ryan. So Ryan and I and some other friends had been playing pretty regularly for a while and Ryan was pretty good. He had a really strong combo modern deck that would win most of the time he played it. Our local card shop does a Thursday night modern format event every week and usually the turnout is around 30 people with prizes being awarded to anyone who finishes 3-1 or better, so we decided to give it a shot. Things went poorly for me and I decided to drop out after my record fell to 1-2, but Ryan was rolling with a 3-0 and had no intention of dropping. I stuck on to watch his last round, which was up against a guy who was also 3-0 by the name of Jed. Ryan takes a seat and me and him are discussing our matches and strategies when up walked one of the goofiest looking dudes I've ever seen. The hair on his head was as greasy and unkempt as the mess of pubes on his face, his gut was large and was clearly obstructing his range of motion, and his clothing style or lack thereof left much room for improvement. The pit-stained Adventure Time shirt looked like it was screaming to get off as it was probably 3 sizes too small. He didn't smell until he opened his mouth. It was clear that his teeth hadn't been brushed in weeks, months even. "Hey, I'm Ryan, how's your night been so far?" Ryan extended his hand to shake the gargantuan mass of fleshy digits before him. "You're my opponent?" the subhuman Neckbeard replied. "Sure, what's your record?" asked Ryan, hand still extended. "I'm sorry but I find it hard to believe that you are my opponent. This is neither a gym or a nightclub, we aren't in your realm, we are in mine." Ryan was pretty amused, gave a half smirk and chuckled and lowered his hand, opened his deck box and began shuffling his card. He gave me a quick jab to the leg and a look that you could translate to "Can you believe this guy?" Jed opened his deck box and pulled out a deck of cards sleeved with My Little Pony characters. "Roll the dice, peon," he said. Jed won the roll and proceeded to insult Ryan's dice rolling abilities as if it were something that made Ryan inferior to him. Ryan's demeanor throughout was calm, quiet and collected, and still the Neckbeard jabbed at him relentlessly as if he was compensating for unfulfilling life he had led to this point. The game proceeded and every move Ryan made, Jed the EOBs had a witty remark. Ryan's deck used a mechanic that allowed him to tap his creatures, bring in another creature, untap that creature again, etc., thus giving him infinite creatures if he had the right cards, and Jed didn't see it coming. Ryan completed the combo by turn 6. "Unless you can kill me this turn or counter me, I win next turn," Ryan said. "What are you talking about? You have no clue what you're doing obviously," Jed replied. Ryan explained the combo to him several times and Jed wouldn't accept it and continued with the game even though it was over. We called the judge over to explain to him that he had lost, and then he had the biggest outburst I have ever seen a grown man display. Also, keep in mind that the match wasn't over. It's best of 3, so he still had a chance to come back. "Let me see that card," Jed declared as he snatched up the card that made the win possible. He clenched it in his hand and proceeded to rip it to shreds, yelling that Ryan had cheated and that his deck was a gimmicky piece of shit that wasn't legal in modern format. "You don't even know how to play this game. Why are you here? This is my realm. My realm," he said again and proceeded to push the cards on the table all over the floor. "Yeah, well, maybe if you spent more time in other realms you wouldn't be such a social fuck up," Ryan replied. It was the first time that he said anything in response. Jed proceeded to yell and snort and thrash and knock over chairs like a pig as he was being escorted out of the building by the staff. Staff apologized and gave Ryan $50 store credit, replaced his ruined card and gave him however many packs he won with his 4-0 record. Jed was also banned from the store. "This is why I don't attend any events anymore. I'd rather stick with playing with friends."
Psybeard enchants Milady on the boss by ImperatorScipio. First post, go me. Good dames and gentle sirs. Today I shall try to amuse you with the story of Psybeard, as he attempts to enchant a maiden on the public transport. Please bear with me, English is my second language and I haven't written in a while. Now the guy doesn't check all the neckbeard boxes, but I believe he comes close. Suggestion greatly appreciated. Meet the characters. Maybe me, 21/m/180 centimeters. Year author. Just another student trying to juggle university, friends, football, volunteering and getting enough sleep. Definitely, be the gal, 19/f/178 centimeters. Student. A gorgeous nerdy girl with a heart as golden as her hair, always smiling, 10 years ballet dancer, straight A grades and generally creep bait. We'll call her Jill. Bian, 18/f/167 centimeters. Jill's classmate. Brunette with glasses, always carrying books and one of the sweetest girls I know. Never, be Psybeard, 23/m/169 centimeters. Goes to the uni, short fellow, not overweight but with majestic greasy mullet Y hair, fond of his psychology and sociology thesaurus and boasting the unique ability to get on everyone's nervous system. PB for short. The background, we all know each other from the uni's astronomy group. I study physics, Jill is an aspiring astrobiologist and PB is there because we talked to him once or twice. Anne is not in the group but we know each other from Jill. It is the February of 2018, Jill and I have been in a relationship for almost 3 months. Usually I drive her home from campus, along with anyone that happens to be on my way, but that day I was absent, so she took the bus. The story might not be as cringy as it would because I'm just writing what she told me afterwards. We had a good laugh while telling me. The setting, bus stop on campus, Jill going to dance practice, PB returning home. The events, as Jill was waiting, PB approached her and tried to initiate small talk. She was polite but didn't know him that well and was a long day at the uni, so he did most of the talking, as usual. They entered the bus and she took a seat while PB stood right in front of her. He continued to talk about his life, mainly how much he wanted to study psychology, he studies material engineering, and how he can judge someone's profile from the way they blink or some BS. When she asked why don't you have a seat, he replied he says a lot, I much rather stand, it's good for the legs and keeps me energized. Having heard that she tried to politely say that she was tired and wouldn't like to engage in conversation, he just said it's okay, I'll do the talking. Mind you, it's a good 20 minutes from campus to the city center, plus the afternoon traffic. It may take up to 40 minutes to reach the central square, her destination. PB's rant about Freudian inner conundrums had worn him out apparently, so he started the questions. How do you keep your hair so ravishing? Why did you choose biology when my department has all the hot boys? Sick, and my fave, a bright girl like you must really be thrilled to have someone to engage in intelligent conversation. By that point she was already considering suicide or manslaughter, maybe both, when she saw Anne entering the bus. She seized the opportunity and immediately went and sat next to her, leaving PB dumbfounded. However, this did not discourage the man, for he made sure to display his presence by very awkwardly going and standing right behind her, his junk 5 centimeters from her hair. I can still see the fear in her eyes telling me, and just sitting there looking at her. Meanwhile Anne noticed that and tried to kind of nod that someone was behind her and maybe she should do something. And between teeth there's someone there. Jill, don't mind, I know him. PB hey, my name is PB, nice to meet you. And like that, his I stand because it's good mentality vanished and he took a seat, all the while stirring up intelligent conversation on how it is quite clear when a female is attracted to a male, clearly topics beyond the fathoms of simpletons. Jill just wanted to vanish and Anne was really confused, he didn't even know the guy and there he is, hitting on her friend. Now PB is a man of intellect, he knows when a harlot is into him and how to stir up the spirits with witty commentary. PB, I see you have a bookmark with Empress Sissy on it, a gift from my Christmas holiday in Vienna. Jill, yes, a gift from ImperatorScipio. PB, one can say it is an imperial gift. An awkward silence followed, with PB smiling, waiting for the ensuing laughter and panty drop and the two girls looking down trying to hide the cringing of their mouth. The bus now reached Anne's stop, so both Anne and Jill stood up and exited. Jill said that she wanted to stretch her legs so she would walk the rest of the way. PB, great, I want to walk too. Jill, okay. So saying goodbye to Anne, they started walking the 2 kilometers from the stop to the dance studio. All the way PB was regaling her with how much walking is a massage for the heart and how he is into the men's sauna and corpo sano mindset. Jill, arms crossed and with the occasional nod, was considering jumping at oncoming traffic. About halfway through she asked. Jill, PB, where is your house? PB, oh, we passed it one bus stop back. Not to though, I don't want to leave you alone to wander in the streets this time of day. It was barely 20:00. After a really long walk they reached the dancing studio, where Jill tried to hastily say goodbye. Jill, well thanks, see you at the uni. PB, I only did what a proper guy would. We should meet for coffee, finish our talk. Jill, yeah, well, my program is a bit full with the classes and all, thanks though. PB, oh, okay. I just thought we can get to know each other. I am a good masseur, I know you like a good massage. Jill, wait, how do you know that? PB, oh, I've seen ImperatorScipio at the uni give you one, you looked quite pleased so I thought. Jill, okay, see you around, and she just entered the building. Next day she told me the story, and while it was funny and all, I felt uncomfortable and wanted to confront the guy, but Jill said that he probably learned his lesson, he won't do it again. I have a couple of stories with Jill and the suitors attracted to her, although she does learn to deal with them and avoid them. Slightly edited for coherence. Sorry for long post, I do get carried away.
The Gem Neckbeard, beginning of the end by deleted. This is the, quite late, tale of a gem I used to belong to, which was slowly being ruined by the son of the owner, a neckbeard named Todd. When we last left, Todd had installed a PS3 in the previous weight room, then proceeded to invite his friends to hang out, while harassing the members. At some point, Dude Bro approached me and asked if I would sign a letter of complaint he was sending to the gem owner. I knew it wouldn't go over well, but the letter itself was quite well put. It hashed out the complaints over the ongoing backroom Cheeto party, the behavior of Todd's friends, and complaints about the condition of the gym. A bunch of members had already signed, so I added my name to it. At this point, I was sort of separating from the gym altogether. Initially, I had moved to the area planning to start my business there, but was given incentives to instead start it in my hometown, a half-hour commute. Between spending long hours in the upstart stage of business and traveling to find new customers, I was barely at the apartment and certainly not using the gym. So, I showed up a full week after shit hit the fan and heard the story from Janice. There was a newsletter that was intermittently updated always by the counter. When Janice showed up though, Todd was handing them out to everyone who walked in. The entire thing was a rant from the gym owner, shaming and angry at us for daring to accuse Todd of anything wrong, pointing fingers of blame at the members. She then sang the praises of Todd's contributions, talking about how much he added to the gym, how he will be taking over the family business eventually, and that, in fact, she had given him a raise recently due to how well he did his job. Katie, who basically ran all operations, read this increasingly angry, then threw the paper at Todd and called his mother. It turns out that Katie had asked for a raise a month prior and was told it wasn't in the budget. Katie at this point was quite pregnant with twins and was the linchpin holding the place together. But the money had gone to Todd, whose best contribution was sitting under the counter. Apparently, Todd started out mocking Katie as she called the owner. Then there was another shock. It turned out the owner had moved out of state to be with a new boyfriend, but hadn't bothered to tell Katie or Dude Bro. Katie was furious and quit over the phone. It wasn't until she was packing her stuff up and leaving that Todd realized he made a mistake and started begging her to come back. I walked in a week later to find Todd in charge of the place. You could literally smell the difference. The garbage cans in the locker room overfilled onto the floor, the stretching room was covered in trash. The place was quiet as well, literally half abandoned. Basically, my interactions from that point on can be summed up in one post. It wasn't good. People asked me to submit Todd to r/fatpeoplestories. I won't, but I do have a story for there that is more sad than anything.
Game Store Creep Grabs My Butt by Ducky46321. Hi, I have never posted to Reddit before, so I'm sorry for any errors I make. I have a younger sister who loves DD. She and her friends have been playing it over Zoom during quarantine. She also has recently hurt her foot and has to use crutches, and as a result can't do a lot in terms of moving around, which has been getting her down. So in an attempt to cheer her up, I went to her favorite game store to get her some new dice to surprise her. I don't know anything about DD, but I know what kind of dice I'm looking for. I walk into the store and am almost immediately stared at by customers and some of the employees. I guess I don't look like I belong in a game store. I'm 17 and 55 with green eyes and blonde hair that goes down to my waist. I was wearing my running shorts and a tank top. I am pretty fit from the hours of taekwondo and running that I do. A lot of my friends say that I look like a Barbie doll. I personally don't think so. But despite all this, I am secretly a huge nerd. I love Star Wars, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Star Trek, anything that has to do with the Avengers, and have watched a few animes. I ignore the looks and go over to the dice and am overwhelmed by the choices. One of the employees helps me find the ones that I was looking for and goes back to the register. Now my logic when choosing the dice were to find the prettiest ones. I know it's shallow, but I was doing my best. I suddenly felt something looming over me. I turn around and see this specimen of a human. He looked to be in his 20s, was like 6 feet tall, probably about 350 pounds. He had a greasy ponytail that was longer than mine, which is saying something. His skin was pale and looked like it had never seen the sun, and had a patchy bead that covered his neck. He had on an anime shirt, shorts and a trench coat. It was at least 95 degrees that day, so I'd why he chose to wear the coat. I shrink back but try to be nice. This is the conversation that went down. Me NB, Neckbeard. Imo sorry am I on your way NB, I was just admiring the view, my lady, you don't need to move. He looks at my chest. I'm a pretty busty girl and am self-conscious about it, so I cross my arms over my chest. I am an overly nice person, so I laugh and try to slip away as politely as possible, but he moves and blocks me. NB, I see you're looking at dice. Do you partake in role-playing games? No, I'm actually getting these for my sister, she loves playing DD. NB, oh well, those are good for amateur players, let me show you the superior dice. He grabs my hand and takes the dice. I flinch and try to pull my hand away. I really don't like being touched because of past trauma. He manages to pry the dice out of my hand while I stand there shrinking into myself, trying to fight off the beginning stages of a panic attack. He grabs a container of dice off the shelf and hands it to me. I look at the dice and smile at the packaging that had a funny little cartoon T-Rex wearing a chef's hat next to the label that was a pun about pizza. NB takes this as permission to go behind me and guides me further into the store to show me more DD stuff out of view of the front counter with the employees. The entire time I'm trying to walk away without causing a scene, but then he grabs my waist and that makes me start to panic again. I push him away and ask him not to touch me and tell him that I have what I need so I can leave. He laughs and says that he would be more than willing to pay for the dice in exchange for my Instagram. His hand slides down and cups my butt. I shove him and book it for the front of the store to pay for the dice. I was so freaked out that I didn't say anything to the employee. I just said hi, thank you, took the dice and left. The employee did ask me if I was okay. I told him that I was fine because I just wanted to get out of there. Before I walked out, NB yelled from to me. NB, I hope those dice serve you favorably. The employee gives him a weird look and mouths what the hell to himself. I speed walked to my car, locking the door and driving to a store about a mile away, making sure no one followed me. I park and calm myself down. I had been to that game store several times before for other board games and had never experienced something like that there. I know that I should have told the employee what happened, but to be honest my brain wasn't working and was just telling me to get out of there as soon as possible. When I got home I had calmed down and processed what happened. My sister was overjoyed about the dice and immediately was telling her friends about them. I did tell my mom and dad about what happened but left out the fact that he touched me. My mother and father are the nicest people in the world and they know that I hate being touched without permission. And if I had told them these details my mom would have been out for blood. They joked that NB had probably never seen or talked to a girl before and wasn't used to seeing someone breathe through their nose. My mom also said that if I had punched him she would have been cheering me on, and I crack up. Not the craziest story, but I thought it was worth sharing. I have a few other stories if anyone wants to hear them.
That one time I dated a neckbeard by MissReanimator. I dated a type B neckbeard in my freshman year in high school. I say type B because he wasn't fat at all and he didn't wear a fedora, but everything else is pretty spot on. He was just a little taller than me and extremely skinny. He had greasy hair that he always spiked up, a face full of acne, a black trench coat he wore even when it was warm, and while his smell wasn't exactly overwhelming it was definitely noticeable. It was a combination of sweat, fast food, and cat urine. We had one class and lunch together. I was very much the awkward, quiet girl who would rather read than talk to people, so I was a little surprised when he started talking to me. He had noticed the anime pictures on my binders and we got to talking about different shows we liked. We also had similar tastes in music and movies, and he always came off as very nice. So, eventually, I mustered up the courage and asked him out. I had never had a boyfriend before, so I was super excited when he said yes. It went downhill almost immediately. He insisted that he had to walk me to every one of my classes, because it was the gentlemanly thing to do, even though most of my classes were nowhere near his. It seemed like a sweet gesture, but after being late to several classes and getting a warning from my teachers I told him that it really wasn't necessary and that I would just wait for him for lunch and after school. He blew up and demanded that he had to be by my side at all times, otherwise another guy might try something with me. I was pretty much a nobody and people didn't really bother me much, so I thought his reaction was completely unjustified. But, whatever. I let it go. After school, he would call me as soon as he got home. The conversation was little more than catching up about classes that day and then nothing. We would literally be silent on the phone for hours. Occasionally we would talk about a show one of us was watching or a game we were playing, but then it would lapse back into silence. If I tried to suggest that we should hang up, he had a meltdown about how I was trying to get rid of him and didn't care about him. So, we just sat on the phone, silent, except for when I ate dinner. He would give me 1 hour to eat with my family and then call back, and when I went to bed. Every single day. I was completely exhausted by him after a single week, but I thought maybe he was just scared because I was his first girlfriend and that, hopefully, he would settle down eventually. I invited him to go out with myself and one of my girlfriends just to hang out. We went to the mall where he walked in between my friend and I the entire time. She and I hugged once and he pushed us apart and told her that nobody was allowed to touch me but him. We thought he was joking. But he wasn't. He didn't allow her to come anywhere near me all day. She texted me later, after we all went home, and told me the guy was a psycho. I knew she was right, but I desperately try to see the best in people and wanted to give him a chance to calm down. It went about as well as you can imagine. Over the course of another week he got more possessive and began to accuse me of cheating on him. During one of our phone calls, he told me that as his girlfriend I was obligated to sleep with him. I was a virgin at the time and wasn't ready to take that step and told him as much, but he didn't believe me and accused me of cheating again. He followed it up by telling me that if I wouldn't sleep with me then he would just drug a drink and do it while I was sleeping. I've always been a fairly non-confrontational person, so I couldn't think of anything to say to that. I hung up and began avoiding him at school. He tried calling and texting me for a few days, alternating between apologies and calling me a dumb bitch who would regret dumping him, before he finally gave up. All in all we dated for a whopping 2.5 weeks, lol. The epilogue to this story is that less than a month later he was dating someone else. One of my other girlfriends who, when I told her about that last phone call, had been completely appalled and comforted me about the ordeal. I guess she's into that sort of thing. No judgment here, I guess.
The Renaissance Fair by Deleted. already posted this on r/justneckbeardthings, but someone told me to post it here as well, so here you go. There is nothing I love to hate more than a good neckbeard story, so here's one from last year, my freshman year of college. I volunteered to act in my city's Renaissance fair, and was cast as the princess. At the time, I had just started dating my girlfriend. I'm bisexual, and she was very supportive of my role. We prepared for months, I bought the costume, and finally in February, about a month into my second semester, the fair started. I had a lot of fun performing for people, especially the little kids who thought I was a real princess. About a week into the fair, though, I met this guy who I'll call Chris. In retrospect, Chris had a lot of red flags, but initially I thought he was just a very enthusiastic patron and I was happy to interact with him. He showed up dressed in costume, which was usually an indication that they wanted to participate, so I was happy to include him. We had some funny interactions that really entertained the kids, and I appreciated that. He pulled a chivalrous act, and flirted with me, but I assumed that it was just part of the character and he was doing it because I was playing the princess and he was dressed as a peasant man. It wasn't uncommon for people to come for more than one day. In fact, we sold passes that specifically allowed you to come back more than once for a discounted price. So when he was there 2 weeks in a row, I didn't really think anything of it. I was happy that he was enjoying himself so much, and I guess you could say I thought that we had made a nice acquaintanceship at the very least. The 3rd week in a row I was surprised to see him back, but I still didn't think much of it. At this point I wasn't dumb enough to think that he wasn't there for me, but I had no reason to suspect ulterior motives because I thought he was aware that the whole thing was just me acting. Boy, was I wrong on that one. The Sunday of the 3rd weekend that he was there, my girlfriend stopped by for a bit to watch me do my thing. I was absolutely thrilled to have her there, and I engaged with her a bit even though she wasn't in costume. I made a joke about the funny clothes she was wearing and in general had a really great time. Chris was there too, and I included him as well, but something was different from the other days. He wasn't as lighthearted about things and seemed to be angry about something. He stayed for the whole day, and my girlfriend left after a few hours. After my girlfriend left, Chris asked me about her, asking who she was and how I knew her and all that stuff. I told him quietly that she was my girlfriend, because I live in a conservative area and I was worried about people getting mad about me talking about gay stuff in front of their precious children or something. He pretended to not understand right away, asking if I meant she was a good friend, or if I was calling her my girlfriend, but I really meant friend, and I told him no, I meant that I was dating her. He seemed nice enough, so I had no reason to think that things would turn out the way they did. Right in that moment, he didn't even react in a negative way. He was just like, "Oh, okay, that's cool," and then let it be. He was still acting a little weird, but I just wrote it up to him having an off day. He didn't show up for the 4th or 5th weekend of the fair, and while I missed him the first day that he didn't show up, I kind of forgot about it after that. 3 weeks in a row was more frequently than most people bothered showing up, especially since he came on both Saturdays and Sundays, so I just assumed that he was off doing real life stuff. He was only a little older than me as far as I know, so I assumed he was a student and just got busy with work. I more or less forgot about him entirely until the 6th and final week of the fair, where he showed up on the Sunday, our last day. We were doing special events for the end of the fair, and one of them was auctioning off a kiss on the cheek from me. It was supposed to be innocent enough, I mean really, what is a kiss on the cheek, and the money was going to a charity that helped fund leukemia research and treatment, so I was more than happy to oblige. The bids were mostly small, I think the highest one was maybe $60 or so? Until suddenly someone offered up $200. That was way more than we were expecting to get out of a single person, and obviously no one really wanted to challenge that, so it went to that bidder. I'm sure you can guess where this is going. Surprise, surprise. It was Chris. I was happy to see him back and I thanked him for the really kind donation. He gave me this really angry look and said something along the lines of "I want what I paid for." I tried to laugh it off, and I was like, "Oh, of course, haha," coming right up, and I started to lean in to kiss him on the cheek. He grabbed my face and spun to face me and kissed me straight on the lips. I'm going to explain the differences in our physiques so that you guys can imagine this a little better. I am a woman of slight stature, standing at 5 feet 3 inches and at the time weighing roughly 105 pounds. I don't really work out, so I had no real strength or muscles to speak of. In comparison, Chris was taller than me, probably 5 feet 10 inches or 5 feet 11 inches, and a lot wider. I wouldn't call him athletic by any means, but it's not that hard to overpower a girl with no upper body strength that barely weighs over 100 pounds. He held me there for several seconds and even tried to get his tongue in my mouth, gross, until the man playing the king forced him off of me. I felt extremely violated and I was on the verge of tears, but the guards, our security, came and dragged him away. As they were pulling him away, he was shouting slurs at me, calling me an ugly dag and disgusting queer among others. He said he hoped my girlfriend and I died. The entire crowd was just kind of in a stunned silence. A lot of people averted their eyes and quickly dispersed. The man playing the king, Mr. B, apologized profusely to me, but of course it wasn't his fault. As I'm writing this, I can feel the prickle of his beard against my face, hear his voice in my head. I shudder just thinking about it. I haven't seen Chris since he got dragged away by security. I'm terrified of running into him again. I'm doing the fair again this year, but thankfully I'm pretty sure he's been banned. Hopefully there won't be any repeat incidents. Smile.
Bottleshop Beard by FlabbidaFloobidda. I visit a local bottle shop in my city a few times a month for a lil day drinkin' and a bite. After a handful of visits I've become friendly enough with the female bartender, FB I'll call her, who almost always works the opening shift when I am usually there. My most recent visit was truly memorable. It was my first pure neckbeard encounter. I walk in just after opening and proceed to the back bar. I notice a guy already there and engaged in conversation with FB. I stop short, and time seems to slow down as I take in this guy's appearance. Black sneakers, black slacks, black button-up shirt, black fedora. He has a ponytail and appears to be attempting a goatee. He seems well kempt enough, he's not terribly overweight and he doesn't seem to smell. After listening to him talk at FB for a bit I knew this beard was more on the heart for sure. I'll call him BB for Barbeard. BB would not shut up. Occasionally FB would get in a mmmbopyeauhyeauh, but for what seemed like forever BB just kept going on and on. Mostly about beer and how he was planning on opening his own brewery, but he also touched on his mastery of swordplay and smoking meats, a true Renaissance man. He was drinking a dark beer from a chalice-like glass but holding it and sipping from it like it's a snifter of cognac or something. Every time he took a sip he would hold up the glass and reflect. That's what it looked like anyway, though it wasn't quiet reflection for sure as he never stopped talking. I was actually pretty entertained. Now FB had at least been able to take my drink order and we exchanged how's it goings, and after what had to be at least 10 to 15 minutes of BB talking non-stop FB manages to interrupt him and say she has to run in the back for 2 seconds. She disappears and there is finally some sweet silence. This is where it got fun, at least for me. I'm staring at my phone when BB says, "You think you've got a chance with her?" I'm thinking he can't be serious and all I've said to her was how's it going. I slowly look over and he's staring off into his glass again, waiting for me to answer I guess. Me, excuse me? BB, the bartender. Do you think you've got a chance with her? Me, absolutely none. BB, well as long as you know. Dick. Me, I've been married for 11 years. BB, good for you. Me, FB is married too, you know. Silence. After a moment, he pounds the rest of his drink, throws a 20 on the bar and storms out before FB returns. When she does, I tell her what happened and we have a chuckle. Thanks for reading.
The Fedora-Wearing Harbinger of Whimsy by Clockwork Opera 7. When I was 15 I had finished high/school and started to attend community college for 2 years before university. My age in comparison to my peers lead to some pretty creepy encounters with older guys, through one in particular stands out. So I was the president of the Psychology and Sociology Association at my college and would always come early to meetings to set up. One day a quiet kid from the club started showing up early too and would just sit and watch anime on his phone. He didn't have a beard, but he did look like a giant baby / smooth skin, a thick layer of chub and a whiny voice that sounded like he was speaking through a kazoo. He wore black graphic tees and yes, a fedora. Jackpot. Anyways, he would always talk to me about anime and show me whatever graphic scene he was watching. I liked the horror stuff, but what he would show me would get more and more sexual. However, I was young and shy and didn't have a lot of friends, so I just kinda tolerated him. Anyways, one day he was talking to me more than usual, telling me about his libertarian beliefs and how he was on the fringes of society watching and waiting for chaos. Eventually in his passion he jumped on a desk, gestured his fedora and said, "I am the harbinger of chaos and whimsy," which made me cringe so hard I thought I would be propelled to space. Luckily I was saved by another club member walking in. After club, he proceeded to ask me out. I told him I was 15 and he just smiled and said something about how societal laws should never stop love. I was sitting there in shock, no knowing what to say. "What do you say, m'lady?" he asked. Finally I came out of my stupor and managed to squeak out that I am a lesbian, a fact that I had mentioned in club before running away in pure terror. Thank God after his proposal went sour he never showed up to club again.
Neckbeard Groomsman by Deleted. I agreed to be in my cousin's wedding in 2016. My cousin Angie had some very strong ideas about how weddings should go. She was already on my shit list for all the stuff she wanted me to change for her special day, which I told her no about, and so this was really her last chance. In June, this year, she had a barbecue for the whole wedding party to meet up at. It was there I met Jake, who was related to Angie's partner. I was partnered up with Jake Assmouth. He was your typical late 20s try-hard. He thought his stubble made him look hot instead of lazy, thought his shirt made him look quirky, but it just seemed like a weird choice in general. Nothing about him looked well thought out. It was like he put 3 different outfits together and took the worst of each one: bright purple cathead shirt, nice work slacks, dirty torn flip-flops, and overly gelled hair. I am a card-carrying member of the League of Lovely Lady Lesbians. I am out, I am proud, and everyone in my family is fully aware of this. Maybe Angie felt with her help I could become straight. Who knows? I have never asked her about it since we are not on speaking terms. But for some reason, Jake Assmouth felt he had a chance with me. I would not have been friends with Jake, let alone date him, even if I were straight. I tend to go for sporty people, who love animals. I have a dog, and who knows how to listen. I sat down at table 2, with Jake, Amanda cousin, John Amanda's boyfriend, and Becca bridesmaid. We were talking about our pets. We all have dogs and Jake just says he doesn't like dogs because you have to take care of them. He prefers snakes. Because they eat mice. And that's cool to see. John starts talking about owning snakes, saying he prefers lizards. We ask Jack if he has ever owned a snake. He says no, his brother did, but it died because his brother didn't want it anymore. Okay. He started asking Becca if she was single. She said no, she has a boyfriend. He then asks if I have a boyfriend. I tell him no, I am single. He tells me he knows, because Angie told him I was single. That means, he said, we are the only 2 singles on the home team. So maybe we should fix that. I told him good luck, maybe Angie knew someone who would be willing to date him. But I was happy being single. Becca kind of looks at me and mouths, WTF is his problem? Jake is obviously, at this point, hitting on me like he's going to die without sex. He calls me Sagey instead of Sage. He gets offended when I correct him. He tried to argue, but we're friends. We're walking down the aisle together in a few months. I start talking to Becca about going to the salon with her later that week, to get my hair redone. Jake tells me he loves my hair. He says that it looks like singer who he follows online and makes comments about. It was super uncomfortable. He then takes my cup and says he is going to get me something more to drink. He winks at me, asking if I am thirsty. I tell him I have to use the bathroom and then go talk to my sister. I go back to my table and he complains I was gone. I tell him I am not here to entertain him. He says I am being a bad date. He also makes a lot of comments about how much cuter I am in person, how he picked me out of all the girls because he likes tall girls. I am fucking uncomfortable and the other people at our table are looking at me weird because they don't know what to say to all his over-the-top bullshit. When I finally leave, after being very clear I like women, do not like him like that, etc., it's like I can breathe again. I figure I will just talk to my cousin and be moved to a different guy. Jake gets my number from Angie, and despite knowing I am a lesbian, sends me really desperate texts about how cute I am. But not before he tells me he can't wait to tell his kids how he met his future wife at his best friend's wedding. How it will be so easy because we have the same last name. I told him I was not interested. Very clearly. He didn't take it well. I got a call from Angie saying I was rude to Jake and I should have given him a chance since I was single. I told her no. And that I wasn't comfortable being Jack's partner in the procession, so I would like to switch people. Angie told me no. I told her I wasn't going to be in the wedding party then. She said fine. And we don't talk anymore.
Encountered a neckbeard while playing video games and man it is cringey AF. It's gonna be a long story but I promise it's juicy, by mmmbopyeauhyeauh. So to give you guys some backstory, I was playing Mass Effect Andromeda and it's hard to find platinum matches. So I figured it was normal to add the people you play with to your friends list. While playing Andromeda I was in this game with this guy and we never spoke but he sent me a message after he added me. He then asked me where I was from and from there I thought oh man here we go, but it turns out he was only asking because the lag was so bad. So I thought maybe this guy isn't gonna be a creep then. Boy was I wrong. Over the course of a week we played online together and it was fun, but he would always message me and sometimes he seemed pretty decent and there were other times he was just straight up weird, like as soon as I mentioned my boyfriend he got all defensive and competitive. He also called me milady, which was an immediate indicator that he was a neckbeard. I had told him that my boyfriend did not really play Mass Effect and he started going on about how I need a real man and how real men play Mass Effect and how real men need to please their girlfriends. Things got even weirder when he told me he was 38 years old. Keep in mind I am 21 and he constantly refers to me as a kid. He would tell me things like oh send me pictures of you in a bikini, and he would tell me that since he's older he's very experienced with girls and how to please women. When he said those things I just ignored it because I'm just trying to play video games, like I'm not here for an internet relationship. So the longer we played together the weirder he got. He seemed to take it personally that I would revive him. He would say oh wow, you're so caring. The odd thing was that some days he would be totally normal and not be weird. I gave him the benefit of the doubt sometimes because English is not his first language, so I felt like there was a language barrier there. So this is where it starts to get interesting. While he was being normal and not creepy and he asks me if I have any social media and I only gave him my Twitter because I don't use it. I haven't used it in about 4 years so I didn't think it was a big deal. So he looked it up and then asked if he could email me because multiple profiles came up and wanted to know which one was mine, and I was like okay sure. Not a big deal, right? I was dead wrong. So once I confirmed my profile with him we didn't talk about it since. So all seemed normal and whatnot. So the next day we play Mass Effect again and he wanted just the two of us to play on Firebase Paradox on Platinum with characters who were not infiltrators so we could not turn invisible. It was a hard challenge and we ended up trying for hours. Until we finally won and I was really happy that we won, and so was he. Again, he seemed totally normal. It was the last game we played so we just went to bed afterwards. The next day we were playing Mass Effect as well and he asks me if I liked his love letter. And I was confused and I said what? And then he explained and said it was the email he sent me, the one where he was confirming which profile was mine. He said that was a love letter. I tried to let it go because I figured it was just a language barrier thing, but I told him I wouldn't consider that a love letter since you weren't confessing your love to me, and then he messages me saying well I do have something I want to confess to you. Now when he said that I was nervous and I really wanted to know. I asking him to tell me and he kept saying it's embarrassing, and I tried to make him feel better by saying that it's all good because I got embarrassing stories for days. I told him I was stuck in a bathroom stall with a blind girl once so I'm well aware of embarrassing stories. Then he said it's not just about him, it involves me too. He then proceeded to tell me that after we had won that intense game where we lost repeatedly, That he was so happy and proud of me that he went to bed wanting to have sex with me. I didn't know what to write back, but he kept saying that it's really romantic when a guy and a girl play just them two fighting off enemies on another planet. I cannot make this shit up. All I could think of saying was it's not as bad as I thought, like I thought he was going to say something much worse, like he has been stalking me or something. Then he goes on to say that he loves and respects women and guys who stalk are pieces of shit. I asked him if he still felt sexual feelings for me and he said no, but if we played another intense game just the two us again it'll come back. And then I asked if he still wanted to have sex with me and his only response to that was only real men want to have sex with younger women. I think the worst part was that he explained his feelings the way he did. He was comparing it to soldiers on a battlefield, and when they finally win a battle it's a happy moment. He said that he didn't have a want to fuck me, it was that it was a need. That's how he explained it to me. I wasn't responding as much after that and he kept asking me if I was scared of him. I said no, I was more confused than anything else. I was pretty creeped out after that. So I told him I had to go and I did some thinking that night and sent him a message saying that I'm not very comfortable that he has sexual feelings for me and that all I wanted was to play Mass Effect and that we shouldn't talk as much anymore. He would always send me messages and we would talk, and he got triggered AF. This morning I woke up to an email from him asking for bikini pictures of me but without my face in it. Then when I got online I had messages from him and he was not happy with what I said. It's all in broken English but he said, "Don't cry. You begged for me to tell you. I don't like your pictures, so why are you scared? I told you it was embarrassing. I told you, but girls never listen. Let's keep this relationship professional." Then he went on to say that I shouldn't be offended because he didn't like my picture on Twitter. He said he didn't like it but he didn't dislike it as well. It was very confusing because he doesn't really speak English. He also started saying that girls find him so attractive and some don't. Then he said that he only sees me as a kid. And he literally said to me, "You're just a kid. You should feel lucky I even talk to you or spend time with you. Don't play the victim." I hate that. I was in shock that this guy thinks he's above me. It was a little creepy how he constantly belittles me because I'm young and yet he is asking for half-naked pictures of me. Anyways, I didn't respond to that because it wasn't worth my time. I love r/Neckbeard stories, so I figured it belonged on here. Edit, I added paragraphs.
M might be having a mental break by TrooperJordan. So if you haven't read the original 2 stories I highly suggest so you understand the true horror that is M. So characters in case you don't know. Me, Jay, just a young trans guy trying to find his way in the world. And the unfortunate recipient of M's tranny chaser tendencies. Gumby, the most chill, generous, kind guy I've met. About 6, skinny as all shit, jawline that could cut diamond. He's the guy that I told them to buy pot from. Basically, he looks like every white boy pot dealer you bought from in high school. M, our fat star of the show. Dictionary definition of a neckbeard. Enjoys Monster Hunter World and being disgusting. So a couple weeks ago I blocked him from my Snapchat. I couldn't post a picture on my story with my friends without him making an overly sexual comment to me. I literally posted a picture with my mom and he made a comment about wanting to meet her, and how we would have to be quiet when we make love so she wouldn't hear us, gag. So it had been a good couple weeks. No sexual comments, no weird furry messages, no constant snaps sent to me about how he's turning into a pothead, all thanks to me. This morning I got a snap from my guy Gumby saying something like, "Hey man, I saw him today. Are you guys, like, together?" And obviously he was confused because 1. It's M. 2. I like women. 3. I don't live there. 4. It's M. And I quickly responded with a concise fuck no. He goes on to explain why he thought that M had gone to pick up from him and mentioned my name. His first words he spoke were about me and he said something like, "Yeah, do you know why I can't snap Jay anymore? They won't send when I send him stuff and I can't see his story anymore." Gumby knew I had blocked him and just told him that I blocked him. He apparently mumbled something about coming on too hard, a moment of clarity, I know, and asked for my number. Thankfully Gumby didn't have it and had a real excuse. He quickly moved on, had asked Gumby my interests and what he thought my ideal date was. After Gumby had explained that he didn't know because, well simply, we didn't talk about that when we hung out, what two guys talk about their ideal, romantic date. I mean not my guy friends I guess. Since M didn't get the answers he wanted, he apparently decided to switch to what he thought would be a better topic, me and sex. Gumby told me about how M seems like he has become slightly obsessed, at least mentally. I'm not saying has a stalker, just a very creepy crush, obsessed with the thought of dating me and sleeping with me. M apparently told him about how has been trying to study how FTM trans people have sex by watching porn. And researching how to support your trans boyfriend. Gross, I know. Gumby thankfully left a lot of the gruesome details out when he retold this experience to me, but trust me, I know enough to make you cringe. He apparently finds it sexy that trans men grow a tiny dick, FYI, that's not true unfortunately, and that he wishes I would fuck him when mine grew. He also expressed his intense fantasy about me being his daddy and treating him like his child, like DDLG but for men I guess. He got into how he just couldn't see how anyone wouldn't want me to tie them up and ball gag them and humiliate them. At this point he had been at Gumby's house for about 15 minutes and according to Gumby, it had felt like an hour. So he tried to get him to leave, but he wouldn't. He confesses that Gumby is the only person he knows that could know things about me that, for some reason, he needs to know. Gumby told M that he wanted him to leave and that he needed to chill the fuck out. And then M snapped. He went off on Gumby. He told him that he just didn't understand love at first sight and his intense, carnal need to be my mate and that a goddess, he wants me to be his daddy and uses male pronouns, but then calls me that. That's how I know he's a tranny chaser like me is a real catch. He ranted about how he will never give up trying to get me to notice him. How no one has ever understood him like I did. How he would fight the most ferocious beasts and travel to distant countries just to see me again and get me to date him. And obviously Gumby was shook to his core. He suddenly understood what I had warned him about. I don't know how he got him to leave, but I'm glad he can't find my private social media or get my number where he's at. In short, I hope to God this is my last story about M.